things, do other things, and, then we get ready for the next game when the next game rolls around. So I do not spend any time at all, and haven't for a long time, in reflecting on what might have been, should have happened, what could be happening. I don't even think about it.
I guess the last question on the LeBron James thing that I just want to ask is, you worked for the man yourself firsthand, and everybody's kind of got their opinion. What were your thoughts on the infamous letter that Dan Gilbert put out upon LeBron leaving? Do you feel it was more just an attempt to mobilize the fan base and try to pick up from what had just happened?
I think it was Dan Gilbert just letting off steam that built up in him when that situation occurred. He felt he had been betrayed, he had been jilted, and that was just Dan Gilbert being Dan Gilbert.
Now, Dan Gilbert, I think famously, when the Miami Heat came back this past year, he tweeted,
"Not in our garage."
Yeah, not in our garage. Is he still very bitter about this? I mean...
Sure.
Do you blame him?
No.
Do you feel that he was really kind of led on to believe that LeBron was returning, or allowed himself to believe that?
Well, I think LeBron kind of played that game, too. So did Dwayne Wade in Chicago. In fact, Dwayne Wade went back to Chicago twice to romance the Bulls. So they were all in on it.
Thinking about that.
The present-day Cavs now, I mean, last year we had all these problems where people were wondering, when will they finally win? I mean, there's even a website, didthecavswinyet.com.
Well, I wanted to ask, Joe, I guess, you're talking about last year. Obviously, the biggest thing that stuck out from last year, I thought it was really unfair for people to put that last season just on the loss of LeBron. Obviously, you lost a big talent, but you also lost about 50% of the team from the year before. Do you think that it was strictly the loss of LeBron or the loss of the entire group of players from the year before that really tanked everything heading into last year?
Well, obviously, the loss of LeBron was a major factor, but we did lose a lot of other people as well, and it was... it was just kind of having a major letdown after all of what happened. So, and they played a lot of kids. They figured they'd better see what they had, and so they did play a lot of kids. And for the most part, now there were some nights when the boys decided to, take the night off, but most nights they really did give it the best of what they had.
Talking about the losses and the young guys, one of the losses was Zydrunas, one of the most legendary Cavs, very beloved in Cleveland history. Definitely he didn't get anywhere near the backlash for going to the same place as LeBron did. Do you feel that was just because people appreciated his situation differently? Unlike LeBron, who's young with a career in front of him, Z was at the end of a career that he really dedicated here to Cleveland and overcame all the injuries. How did you feel about his decision to go down to Miami, and why the fans treated him so differently than LeBron? I think deservedly so.
Well, he did it the right way. He was open and above board as to what he was doing, why he was doing it, and people could relate to that, so there wasn't the backlash.
It was interesting, even when he did go to Miami, he didn't get that much playing time. He didn't really get the opportunities he had here at the Cavs. I mean, I think Cleveland almost pitied him and his situation.
You know what, real quick, I want to ask Joe, because Joe was on the front lines. What were your, feelings or what about the night that Z was set to break the record for most games played as a Cav, and Mike Brown didn't put him in the game in the first half? Do you feel that was really just an oversight, or what do you think was the reasoning behind that? And do you understand why Z felt insulted?
I can understand why he felt insulted, and I think Mike Brown, who was under a great deal of pressure, just merely had an oversight.
Wow. You're listening to the Sports Fix. We're joined by legendary basketball announcer and Media Hall of Fame member Joe TAIT. As your days with the Cavaliers organization started to come to their end,
I spent most of my time in a hospital bed. I had 2 pulmonary embolisms, open heart surgery, double bypass. I had other things on my mind that were obviously much more important to me than the Cavaliers. That
probably made the last few parts of the season there even more meaningful for you, because I'm sure there were some times when you wondered if you had called your last game.
That's true, and I did want to go out, as they say, I wanted to go out standing up. I wanted to go out and do a few games right at the end, and then call it a career, because I had made up my mind while I was out of action that I was definitely not coming back. So that's just the way it was.
Before the chapter is ended on your Cavaliers broadcasting career, you kind of returned a little bit to your earlier broadcasting roots, Mount Union, to do Division III football broadcasting. You also did high school basketball, and then what led on to having the C-126 section being honored as the Joe TAIT Perch. What were those moments in your illustrious career like?
Well, I've been doing the Mount Union Purple Raiders in football for 26 years, so it was not anything new. It was something I'd started in the mid-'80s and have done every year since then. As far as high school ball, again, I would say I probably started that in about the mid-'80s too, because I found that doing high school basketball was a real battery charger for me in terms of the long NBA season. To go to a high school venue, it was really something that I enjoyed to get fired up over and have a lot of fun with, and it just helped my outlook on life. And the Joe TAIT Perch, I had nothing to do with that. I was just glad they didn't call it the Joe TAIT Walleye or the Joe TAIT.
It's funny because when we announced you were going to be on the show, somebody went on our Facebook page and took a picture at the queue of the Joe TAIT Perch sign and posted it on our page. But you get ready to come back to finish out last season. The Cavs put together the Joe TAIT Appreciation Night. How did that feel for you, that whole night? Behind the scenes, all the people that came and spoke with, shared their whatever with you, and then the fans and everything, that whole experience. What was that like for you?
Well, it was very nice, very enjoyable, and it was a good way to go out. But I was just very happy that I was able to go out doing ball games as opposed to having them wheel me out in a wheelchair or something like that.
They sent him out a winner. They beat Washington.
Hey, I was
in your last game.
3-2, fellas. I was 3-2 of the 5 games I did at the end of the year. So
you talk about Baron Davis comes in and wins a few games. Joe TAIT was the secret. Joe TAIT came.
That's right.
Quickly talking about that last season, I just wanted to ask you, that losing streak last year, I really felt that thing became kind of organic and really took on a life of its own, and that's the only reason it went as long as it did. I know you had other things going on, but isn't that kind of how that happens in sports? That thing kind of takes on a momentum of its own, and it's really hard to break loose from? Especially
with a very young team and minimal talent. It really does grow. It feeds on itself. It sure does.
Looking at the entire embodiment of your work, do you feel that you were able to go out on your own terms?
Yep, sure do. As I said, I wanted to do a few games in my last season, and I got that done, and so I walked away with no regrets. Hey,
you know what, Joe? Actually, we have a few surprises before we let you go off of here. First, we opened up on our Facebook page any questions. We actually have a few fans that wanted us to ask you some questions here while we've got you on. Charles Smith from Cleveland asked you, in your opinion, what team was better, the 2007 LeBron Finals team or Mark Price, Ron Harper, that era before the injuries?
Price, Harper, that bunch.
All right, Charles, there you go. Jerry Sharp wants to know, which era was the most fun for you to broadcast, the Price and Doherty or the Miracle of Richfield?
I think the Miracle in Richfield had more just sheer fun to it than the others, although they were all enjoyable.
All right, and our last question from Joe Brunson. He asked, during your broadcasting Hall of Fame career, who do you believe is the best all-around player in the NBA?
Does he mean now or ever?
I believe any time during your broadcasting career.
Oh, well, I'd have to say Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is a guy who played all 5 positions at the championship level and won, so that certainly puts him at the top of the page. Michael Jordan was the most spectacular player and gifted player that I ever saw, and Larry Bird was the most determined ball player I ever saw. That guy, if I was going to war, I'd want Larry because he really was a determined guy that would let it all hang out to get the job done. So there's 3 right there.
And who is the most, I guess, underrated player that you've seen in your years, like the player that you felt was the best that just didn't get the attention that his talents deserved?
Oh, well, listen, there are a ton of those. A lot of guys, in fact, I remember Bill Fitch said once, the most underrated player is the guy who has that last spot on the bench, plays once a week, works hard in practice, and keeps his mouth shut.
Makes sense to me, guys.
Great quote.
You know, we're, again, being joined by Joe TAIT, and your name alone now has become synonymous with some of the most enthusiastic and emotional-filled calls when it comes to just moments in a game. I mean, just with your opening line of "it's basketball time" at the Q or wherever the team happened to be playing at that night, the enthusiasm brought with just wham with the right hand.
Wham with the right hand. That's one of my favorites.
These calls are going to be forever imitated.
Did they all just kind of come at a certain time of themselves? Did you plan?
They materialized out of the ether with no pre-planning whatsoever.
That truly makes them beautiful, because these things.
The good ones always do. The ones you plan always fall flat.
These calls will probably and forever go down as often imitated and never truly duplicated, because what you've brought to this industry and to
the city,
the scope of play-by-play is something it will always, in my humble opinion, will probably make others pale in comparison.
But you know what? You're talking about from a fan's perspective, from a listener's perspective, but it's not just us. It's the play. You know, a lot of the people that you've come across. Matter of fact, Joe, a couple of guys wanted to send some messages to you, so I'm going to play those for you now. First, we caught up with Andy Verjao.
Joe TAIT, it was always good to me. You know, it was always good to be around him, sit on the bus and listen to his stories. And great guy. What a great guy and a positive person. And I like that. I like that about him. And unfortunately, we don't have him this season. But I just want to thank him for everything and wish him a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Austin Carr sent this for you.
Just want to say congratulations, Joe, on a great career. And you are probably one of the most influential people in my life. And just want to say I love you.
Boobie Gibson grabbed us and said, "Hey, you're talking about Joe TAIT. I've got something to say."
I just want Joe TAIT to know, he was here when I was a rookie. He called probably the best game I'll probably ever have in my professional basketball career. Looking to have more like it, but there'll never be a commentator to me like him, because he was there when I started, and he was with me through the ups and the downs. And Joe, I missed you, and I just, I wish you the best with everything you have in the future, and I love you.
And then we caught up with Jonathan Knight, a former columnist with The Plain Dealer, a book writer. He's actually quoted in your new book, and he had this to say for you.
Hey, Joe, this is Jonathan Knight, a writer and Cleveland sports historian. Just wanted to say thank you for everything you have done for the city of Cleveland and certainly the Cavaliers franchise. You are a true icon in Cleveland sports, have meant a lot to a great deal of people, as evidenced in your new book. And just wanted to say thanks for everything you've done for me as a fan, turning me into a fan, pointing me in this direction in my career, and bringing so much to so many people. So thanks, Joe, and best wishes for a happy retirement.
So you see, Joe, and that's just a small sample, but we just wanted to show you and show the listeners out there that you've affected everybody along the years you've worked with, from the person listening across the radio to the person playing the game right in front of you.
Well, I appreciate that. That was very nice to hear. And, those fellas will always have a soft spot in my heart, too.
Really quickly, I had the opportunity to go through your book earlier this week, and I got to say, I think one of my favorite things, or one of your favorite calls that you had, was from your first year when the Cavaliers were playing the Knicks. And I believe it went along the lines of, Garrettson wouldn't give a foul if he pulled out a machine gun.
I remember that very well, yes.
It's so interesting that some of your quotes and some of the things that you've said have gone on. Like, we sometimes air St. Ignatius football games on here, and the call gals say from left to right on your radio dial. And
that came from Joe TAIT.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's everywhere. Joe TAIT is everywhere.
Well, that's the way it is, guys, and I've enjoyed the years that I've had in broadcasting, and now I'm certainly ready to move on to other things.
And that basically, I mean, you guys, we've spent the last, this entire show. This entire show has been built around Joe TAIT, 2 hours memorializing the man himself, and now you've put 30 years down on paper. As we talked about at the beginning of the night, you and Terry Pluto got together. Joe TAIT, it's been a real ball. I've read the book. I thought it was fantastic. I blew through it in less than an hour. I'm a voracious reader, and I couldn't get enough of it. I said, that's it? There's not a second part to this book? It was great, but it's out there everywhere now. What are your thoughts on the final product of the book?
Well, I thought Terry Pluto wrote a great book. I just provided a ton of scrapbooks and a lot of hot air, but he did all the heavy work.
Hey, where can people find it? I know they can obviously find it on Amazon.com. It's available at bookstores throughout Northeast Ohio. Also, I believe there's a website. Am I right? It's joetaitbook.com?
Yes,
And
yes, you're right.
You have a Facebook, Twitter link as well.